Hi everyone and welcome to today's video reviewing an item from Galen Leather today. This is not one of their leather products, this is one of the products that they do to go along with their leather products. This is the A5 Everyday Blank Notebook. Okay, and this is not the leather bound version of it, this is just the plain version. So it comes in this nice sort of zippered canvas bag, and it's a very simple, very elegant notebook. Plain black, A5, lovely textured cover. I really like that. It's sort of a, it's got a nice texture to it, and it's sort of it's got a durability to it, which I really enjoy. And as I said, this is the A5 Everyday Blank Notebook. This book comes with 200 sheets or 400 pages of Tomoe River 50 GSM white blank paper. So we all know Tomoe River paper is considered one of the best papers for fountain pen use. It's ink resistant and it brings out qualities of the ink like shading and sheen like almost no other paper does. It just does everything we want it to do. There's no feathering, there's no bleed, you know, it just performs really, really well. But it is very thin, and that's a lot of people's problem with it, and this is the light one. The 68 GSM paper is a little heavier, a little less see-through and things like that. But this is the 52, and it means that, you know, in a notebook that is still has a relatively slim profile, like that's not a big thick notebook, that we still do get 200 sheets or 400 pages. So that's 400 if you use both sides of the page. And you can do that to a degree, but because this paper does have a lot of show through, sometimes on this paper that is a bit tricky. So I generally tend to use one side of Tomoe River paper for things like reviews and things, because you do get a bit of show through coming through on the other side. So let's talk about this particular notebook. As I said, it's A5, so the measurements are roughly 145 millimeters by 210. So that's 5.7 inches by 8.26 inches, so standard A5 size, which is really great. It's got lovely rounded corners which protect the book from getting damaged, but also just is a nice like little look. It's a hand-bound book. You can see that it's a group of many signatures that have been sort of cloth bound in together. And things like, you know, simple things like it lays flat, and I mean it really lays flat, and it takes virtually nothing to get it to do so. One of the bonuses of this kind of binding is that it just opens up on itself and allows it to sit completely flat. And because this is not like it's not a plain cardboard cover or paper bound cover, it's sort of got a cloth sort of texture to it, that cover is going to stay in reasonably good shape for a little while. You can see there's already sort of fold marks in it from where I've sort of been playing with it a little bit and, you know, all of that, but it should survive. You get a few things with the Galen Leather books, and they come in this little sleeve. What you get is you get guide sheets. So there's two sorts. There's a large grid and a small grid. And then the same with the lined paper, a large line and you can see on the back there a sort of a finer line. There's also this sort of blotter sheet in there which has two uses. I'm actually going to take it out. So these are all done by Galen Leather. Galen Leather is a Turkish-based company, and they obviously specialize in a lot of leather goods and things like that for, you know, stationery books and all those sorts of things. But their books, they have this range of everyday notebooks from like the single sort of thin stitched bound books using Tomoe River paper, where you get 3 in a pack, through to this particular sort of book, and then they have a leather bound version of this which has a lovely soft leather cover attached to it. But you can see here, so this is the lined guide sheet, so you get a 7mm line and you get a 10mm line. You get a grid, which is a 10mm grid and a 5mm grid. And these are guide sheets. And then, of course, as I said, this is the blotter sheet, but it can also be used as you put it under the page you're writing on, and it provides you with a nice sort of very soft writing surface. which is very, very nice. But let's just see these. You'll see the guide sheets when I do a little writing sample, but just as an example of how they work, just place it under the sheet, and then because this Tomoe River paper is so thin, you can very clearly see the guide underneath. So it gives you that ability to draw on straight lines, write on straight lines, do whatever you sort of need to do, but without that remaining on the page. One of the beauties of this particular book and a lot of the Galen leather products is that they are designed to fit in other Galen leather products. So this is the A5 zippered folio, and a book like this is designed to be used in a folio like this. It slips in nicely, it fits beautifully within the the zip, and also having those rounded corners means that you've got clearance for the zip, and it fits lovely. And it would be a great, sort of notebook to have in a cover like this. Okay, I have done some writing samples in this book. Sort of like little ink tests here on the, as I said, it's 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. I've written here with Riku Cha in a TWSBI VAC 700R, Noodler's Squatig in a Leonardo Memento Zero, Robert Oster Tranquility, Noodler's Q Eternity, Robert Oster Black Violet, Graf von Faber-Castell Carbon Black, Waterman Red, Noodler's Bay State Blue, and a Jinhao 992. I use this as a sort of a test of every paper because it's an ink that just will destroy anything. And then things like a Retro 51 rollerball, a Muji gel pen, standard ballpoint pen, a highlighter, and a Palomino Blackwing pencil, and then erasing it, and it does erase nicely from this paper, and then a Sharpie marker, because even though it's an alcohol-based sort of a ink, it does tend to sort of eat through everything as well, but just interesting to show nonetheless. And if we look over the page here, you'll see that there is a lot of show through. I did use the Tranquility here in a Noodler's Conrad, so I tried the Flex, and where you do put down a lot of ink, actually a surprising amount sort of does come through, and things like Noodler's inks tend to sort of eat through a lot more, but things like the Waterman inks, generally the Robert Oster inks, these show through, but they don't actually necessarily bleed through, which is really nice. I'm going to do a writing sample on over here. I'm also going to test the paper for sheen, even though you can see, like on the Robert Oster Tranquility there is a bit of sheen, but I'm going to really put it, particularly there with the Flex, so you put down a lot of ink. I'm going to give it a run for its money with some California Teal from Monteverde, and we'll put it down with a letter opener so we get a really decent amount down on the page. One thing I also wanted to mention that I forgot to mention earlier was that there's very little branding. You get that's on the back, Galen leather, gives you information about made in Turkey and the size and all those sorts of things and the sort of paper used, which is nice, simple, branding. There's nothing on the end pages here. You get just where the page is glued in, attaching to that, but nothing on either end page. It's very clean, it's very clear. Simple, elegant notebook, and Galen leather really, once again, thinking about their products. Okay, so for this writing sample, I'm going to use the 7mm guide sheet, and I'll place it in there, and you can see the lines come through nicely. I'm using a Lamy 2000 here with Lamy Petrol as the ink. So we have the Galen leather A5 everyday notebook. It is 52 GSM Tomoe River paper, and here I'm using a Lamy 2000 with a medium nib and Lamy Petrol ink. You can see, because this is a wet pen, and it's one of the reasons I use it for these reviews, because it does sort of test the paper as well. So putting down quite a lot of ink. We'll see in a second when I turn it over, but you can see that still, like, even the wettest writing is at the top there is still wet. Like, you know, that's the most, it's gonna, because the paper is ink resistant, the ink actually has to dry. It doesn't absorb into the paper. But, you know, that's actually, you know, that's to be expected with this paper. It also means that you have to use a blotter sheet, you know, if you want to turn the page quickly, which is one of the reasons they provide something like this. This is the same paper that is in like a Hobonichi planner. And so, like, if you're familiar with those, you'll know how sort of all of that reacts. So here is my bottle of California Teal. I'm just going to put down like a nice little swab-ish thing of the ink on here. Really putting down a lot. And we'll see how that dries in just a few minutes. While that's drying, I thought we would go over a few other things. Firstly, the price. Now, this retails for through the Galen website for $25 US or 35 Australian dollars. So for 200 sheets or 400 pages of Tomoe River paper, I think that's actually a pretty good price. It's a nice notebook, it's well made, all of that sort of stuff. So price-wise, it's great. If you want the leather version, the price jumps up to 36 US or 50 Australian. So it's still very much within the, you know, sort of an affordable price range for what you're getting. And you do get like a leather cover over the top of a notebook like this. Same dimensions, same page numbers, all those sorts of things. So it's a really interesting book in that respect. So price-wise, I think it's okay. Let's now talk about pros and cons. We'll start with the cons because, well, let's face it, I can't think of any. To be perfectly honest, there is no real downside to a notebook like this other than one thing, and that is that the paper is thin. Now, Tomoe River isn't everyone's favorite paper. It's not my favorite paper. I like it a lot, and I understand its use. It's not my favorite paper because it is thin. I like to use both sides of the page, and so I use notebooks like that use slightly thicker paper, you know, sort of the 80 to 100 GSM, still ink resistant. But so that's the only downside to this, is that it does show through. Like, it's a thinner paper, but that helps with things like the guide sheets. So let's talk about the pros. Well, we'll start with price because I actually think that's a pro in this case. You're getting a lot of pages of good quality paper for a pretty reasonable price. As I said, in a well-made notebook. It's, you know, it's not going to fall apart on you anytime soon. It's really well made, it's great paper, and it's a good price. And also, for those of you who haven't dealt with Galen leather, and those of you who have will hopefully agree with me entirely here, Galen leather are a really lovely company to deal with. They have really good customer service. They think about things. They're customer orientated, and they think about their products from a customer point of view. And also, their products are generally really affordable, so you get great bang for your buck. So this isn't entirely dry yet, but before I sort of wanted to do the conclusion, I just wanted to show sort of what I mean by, like, this is, you see the shading there, but also the sheen popping on that ink. It is a high sheening ink. It's one of the reasons I chose it, but you still won't get sheen if you use this on bad paper. But this just sheens nicely. And if we look at the reverse of this page, without spreading the ink everywhere, you'll see from the writing sample, nothing comes through. Like, it is ghosting. Like, you can read it through the page, no doubt. But we put the swab down, we put a lot of ink down, and yes, it sort of is starting to sort of want to break through, but it's not actually broken through, and it certainly hasn't gone through onto the page behind either. So there is bleed, but it's performed pretty well, seeing as how much ink I actually put down on there. And you can also see that there's definitely no feathering or anything. It's beautiful paper for fountain pen ink. And, you know, for just about any writing instrument, I think everything sort of feels nice on this. So a book like this could be used for art and, you know, watercolor and stuff like that, as well as sort of standard everyday writing, if that's what you decided to do. Just the only thing to be aware of is how see-through the pages are, because it is super, super lightweight paper. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here or drop me an email, which is listed down below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel, get in touch and let's see what we can do. enjoy your pens and your paper, and I'll talk to you soon.